Well, here we are. It's 2023, and it's been an exciting beginning to the year. And here I am with two of my favorite friends. We have C2 Larson, bottom left. I don't know why you guys are seeing. And of course, Ran from Crypto Banter. Did you guys enjoy the Christmas holidays? Thanks for coming back.
I mean,
It was fantastic. An amazing break. I think it's important, actually, if we have this ambition to stay for a long term, it's good. It's important to take a break, rest, recharge, come back with new positive energy.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, for me, it was one of the first real holidays I've ever taken. I think the reality is that Bitcoin and the markets also gave us a holiday. Like, usually you can't take a holiday because the market moves. The whole of December, the Bitcoin price was like stagnant. And then as soon as we got back in January, we've had day after day, we had 15 positive days, or we had the biggest run that Bitcoin's had in 13 days or something like that. So
it started when we came back, Ran. That's what started it.
Exactly. It was the day Crypto Banter got back. I mean, I don't want to take credit for the whole pump, but I mean, some of it should be given to us.
Exactly. Well, I'm so happy to see you guys. We have a big agenda today, and there's also some breaking news too. But just to set the tone and the temperature, 2023 started with a bang. It took a lot of people by surprise. If I was to poll Twitter who was surprised by this move, I'd say 70 to 80% were taken by surprise. And the big question is, will it be a Bitcoin bull trap, or is the bull run on? Is the pre-halving run on? We're going to talk about which alts you like now, best AI crypto plays, tons of other topics, kind of a quick fire round. So before we jump in, don't forget to subscribe to both our channels if you're not already below. Thank you for the likes in advance to make sure we get as much airtime out there. This is going to be a very, very important year to be on the train, as I say. You guys agree? Or should you hide in your cave?
I'm always on the train. I mean, I don't exit markets. I'm always in. I'm almost all in, to be honest. And for me, the reason is you've got to be in the market. I actually spoke about it on my show today. I wonder if you'll just let me share the screen here.
Sure.
See if it works. So I'm just going to quickly take you to show you something that I saw. This is an article around CNBC, and what they did was they took the 10-year returns. They took the decade returns, and they said, what if you set out for the 10 best days of the decade? And you can see on the S&P, which is not as aggressive as crypto, if you would have stayed in the 1930s, you would have had 39%. But if you would have out for just 10 days, you would have lost 80%. And the trend continues. Look at 2020. If you would have stayed in the whole time, you would have got 125%. But if you would have got out for the 10 best performing days, you would have lost 33%. I don't have faith in my ability to pick those best 10 days. And since I don't have faith in my ability to pick those best 10 days, I prefer to just stay in the market, specifically after a huge deleveraging like the one we had, and say, I don't know if this is the bottom. I know that my long-term view is a 10x view, not a 20 or 30% view up from here. And therefore, whether I catch the bottom or catch 20% above the bottom doesn't really matter to me. And that's why we've been aggressively DCAing at the end of last year after the FTX event, when everybody was negative. We were DCAing into things like Solana. We were DCAing into things like Ethereum, Near Protocol, etc., because I don't believe in my ability to time markets.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what CTO Larson says, because I know that he's the opposite. Like, he was out the market and he was waiting for the ribbons to turn. Did the ribbons turn in time? Just walk me through what happened there.
Exactly. So it's super exciting, and I think many people, they've only seen bearish CTO Larson because they kind of discovered me last year, and then I've been kind of negative the whole year. They will think I'm always like that. So let me try to share the screen here and let's have a look, because there is a lot to say right now.
Question. Before you share the screen, or while you're sharing the screen, can I ask you a question? Did you make a video in the last 30 days that said, I've been out the market and now I'm getting back into the market?
I posted exactly when I bought in my Discord channel within
Excellent.
10 minutes. And so I have proof of that. I've also posted it today on YouTube.
When was that?
So, can you guys see my screen? I think not, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's sharing now.
You can. Because the situation is the following, right? Most people have only seen me here during 2022, when it's been like basically a straight line down, and I've been negative the entire time, except for a small little blip here in April last year, where it kind of faked out, and we were happy for like 2 days. Then that stopped out. But guys, things changed, and they actually changed while I was still on holiday, so I was a little bit slow to react, but only by a couple of days, because something happened here, and that is that someone started buying. I don't know if it's visible here, but on the right side here, you can see something called volume profile. So that is what volume people are buying, what price the volumes happen. Someone bought, someone sold. And as you can see here, we had the biggest volume spike we've had at any price level since 2021. There has never been so much volume as there was here at 16,900, something like that, 17,000. And that happened now last week or last 2 weeks. You can see the spike still here. And that is dramatic change. And who was buying? Was it retail? No, it wasn't. Because if we look at Twitter, people are so angry. They're super angry after this whole move. Means that most people missed it. Most people didn't follow you around probably, or James, or, they missed this move while someone was buying. So there was large players that were suddenly buying big in the market, accumulating. The price structure changed. These resistance levels started breaking up, and I bought when this second resistance level broke up here, which was on Tuesday at 17,433, I think. So that's somewhere here. And that's where I actually got back into the market. It wasn't at the bottom, but right now I'm pretty happy, pretty satisfied with that. And I also want to show something else. If we zoom way back out and we look at the entire duration of Bitcoin since the start, we're in the fourth major cycle, right? And each time in this cycle from 2011, it took really long until we reached all-time high. Second time, it took even longer. It took like 3 years. A third time, it also took 3 years. You see 157 bars, that's 157 weeks. It took like 3 years. And this time, we have not been 3 years yet. But the time to buy was not at the end of those 3 years. It was much earlier in the cycle. You can see the bottom was here. It's visible on the screen. The bottom was here. The bottom was here. And if you look in the current cycle, I don't know about you, but I think it looks exactly the same as the previous two ones. Perhaps the bottom is somewhere here in the middle. Perhaps the bottom is here. We haven't had 85% retracement, but it's pretty close. I think it was, if I draw this more accurately, it's like 77%, something like that. If we count it from the beginning, the first top there, over 60,000, this could be the point where we're turning around based on the history. Of course, it could be different this time, but we have no longer bearish, negative CTO Larsson. I stopped sharing.
Yeah.
We have positive, bullish CTO Larsson back.
Exactly. Let's talk about this for a second, because, and we have to move fast with a lot of ground to cover, and then we get to the breaking news too. But I think the 2018-2019 bear market was under that 200-day moving average, 386 days, I think. And this time around is 381 days. So the confluence amongst history is quite stunning. Now, the other thing that I think is very important is we saw a lot of buying and no selling. And that's why we had such big candles. Did you guys notice that?
So I noticed that. Also, if you look, if you want to just look at, there's two charts that I want to show you. Just if you give me one, I wasn't ready to pull up the charts, but based on what you're saying, here we go. So let's look at these two charts based on exactly what you're saying. The first thing is, if you look at investors' realized losses, it was the biggest realized loss ever in the history of Bitcoin. 88 billion was in realized losses happened. Now, the reason why that's so important is you said there were no sellers. And the reason why there were no sellers is because the sellers were flushed out, the leverage was flushed out. What remained is a bunch of retard degens that are not selling at any price. And that's why all of a sudden, when there was that $4 billion order on the futures last week, that's what set this whole thing off. That's what set the Bitcoin run off. It caught the market by surprise. The other thing that I want to show you is if you look at Larson's, he looked at the chart, and you overlay it against this chart, which is the halving progress chart. We're exactly 66% of the way towards the next halving. And traditionally, when it comes to halvings, every time we hit 66% of the way, that's usually when the market turns. So you can see over here, the first halving, there it is. That's where we turned. Here's the progress, the second halving, and you can see that that's pretty much was a bottom. And then now the third halving, we're 66% of the way to the fourth halving. So it's funny because I never looked at it like CTO looked at it, but when I look at it and I overlay CTO Larson's chart, it's exactly the same chart that kind of shows the turn, which is, I mean, you're getting a validation from a non-technical analysis resource.
Yeah, there was a key.
And then we have to address one objection, because usually at this point comes an objection that maybe it's different this time because the macroeconomic environment is actually different now than it was during the previous 2 or so halvings. We're in, probably in a recession. Inflation is different. Interest rates are different. Perhaps the speculative mania phase of the market with bubbles and so on, perhaps is over. So perhaps it will be different this time.
A recession is the best thing that could ever happen to us. A recession in the US today is the best thing that could ever happen to us. You know why? Because when the markets are in recession and the Fed has a high interest rate, which is not zero, the only thing the Fed can do to get out of recession is lower interest rates, which means that the sooner we get this recession that everybody's talking about, the better, because then the Fed will put up their hands and say, whoa, we're in a recession. By the way, inflation's gone down. We saw the inflation numbers down. Now is the time to start loosening. So David Sachs had a tweet about this, and he said, I just want to show you the tweet just because I think it's important to see how he framed it.
The Fed's going to stop raising rates. I think everybody knows that. Yeah. And in fact, we're going to talk about the Fed towards the end. Can we pause that conversation for now? There's one last thing I want to talk about just for Bitcoin for a second. This came from Bitcoin Magazine today, and they believe that there's only 572,000 sellable Bitcoin on exchanges. This is, 4 or 5% less than the low of 2019. Do you guys believe that a supply crunch could come? I know we've all been talking about it for a long time.
I know there's like Bitcoin and exchanges. I'm a little bit skeptical to that measure because I think that many people are more wary to leave their Bitcoin on exchanges right now than they were perhaps 1 or 2 years ago. And looking at my own behavior, I didn't think much about that. I completely trusted the exchanges. Now I don't trust anything. I don't trust anyone. I Bitcoin as little as possible on any exchange, right? And I suppose more people think like that, and maybe that could be one reason why there's less Bitcoin on exchanges. Maybe they are in hardware wallets. So I take that one with a little bit pinch of salt, but who knows? But I agree with you. I think that the people who were going to sell, they have sold. Exactly. That's when it is the bottom, right? We talked about that during the episode before Christmas, right? That is the bottom when the last optimist has sold. Then,
the key thing that people forget to realize is price is at the margin, and if there's very little available for sale, any big buys will cause these dramatic candles. Rand, what do you think?
I think that everyone who sold. $88 billion was realized losses. Taking a realized loss means that you've tapped out of the game, either because you're forced to because you need the money, or because you're liquidated, or because you just couldn't hold on any longer because you didn't have enough conviction. And so I think what happens in the end of a cycle is you get a transfer from the weak hands back into the strong hands. And the strong hands usually hold all the way up and sell somewhere near the top because that's just what they do. And I think we're seeing signs of that. I'll give you another thing, which I spoke about earlier on my show today, which I think is probably worth mentioning. And that is the signs that the market is coming out of a bear market is that when the market starts responding to good news. So in a bear market, the market does not respond to news. You can put out whatever news you want, and the market's not going to respond to the news. We've seen in the last 2 weeks or so that the market's actually started to respond to news again. I'll give you 2 examples: Gala Games studio announcement, 100% up, 150% up. Avalanche up from I think $10 or $9 or $8 or whatever it is, up to $16 based on the Amazon. Yeah, something like that. Now, that's uncharacteristic for a bear market. I think you'll agree with me. And we've had those price moves on news now. So to me, I'm going to steal an analogy from Ivan on Tech. I love his content. He says, it's about seasons and it's about the change of a season. And at the end of winter, you don't automatically get summer. You go through a period of spring. And that's probably a great analogy for whether or not we've bottomed and what we can expect. I don't think we can expect to jump back to all-time highs, but I do think we can expect some green shoots on the leaves and, in CTO license case, some of the darkness to disappear and maybe some light to come in the window,
Good.
Exactly. And
that's a good...
we talked about it actually on the last show we did together, that there was one change. The first, stroke of sun was when the market stopped dumping on negative news. And that is often like that. Often the bottom doesn't happen because there's some huge positive news and the market runs back up. It happens on some negative news, but the market doesn't dump. And that actually happened when we talked about it, I remember last time we spoke.
Well, I love that lead in, by the way, from Ivan on Tech of spring, because that leads us into this. This is going to happen in March. And recently, Ran, you became a big ETH bull. You're flipping your Bitcoin into ETH. And we have that March unlock, the great unlock coming. 16 million ETH could hit the market. Of course, it's not all going to hit the market. But how are you preparing for that? Either one of you first, or are you looking? Are you still holding your ETH?
So let me take this one because we got a lot of flack. We posted a tweet last week which said we're selling some of our Bitcoin. Why? Because we think that if we don't, we're going to lose 50%. And the reason is we think that Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin by about 50% in the next cycle, between now and the end of the next cycle. That's based on the charts. That's based on we can go through all the metrics that's based on. So you're asking a very interesting question, because when you sent the show agenda through to us, and I saw that you wanted to talk about the ETH unlock, I started to really think about what this ETH unlock basically means. Now, there are 16 million ETH that are going to be unlocked. There is a large percentage of those ETH that is going to remain in the staking because the staking rewards are going to be hopefully pretty high, between 5 and 15%. There is a large part of those ETH that are on Lido, Frax Finance, Rocket Pool, and those guys give their holders a liquid token. So yes, those ETH are locked, but they're not really locked because you do get a liquid token anyway. So it is quite a liquid scenario. So I have a concern. Am I panicked about it? No. I think it's priced into the market because I kind of think that any news that is this public is pretty much priced in by very smart people. I think that's pretty much where my head is at.
Good.
I'm thinking like this. That there's the buy the rumor, sell the news, right? When something positive will happen, people think that when that positive thing will happen, price will really surge. But if it's known already, the run-up happens before the news is announced. And then when the news happens, actually nothing happens. Perhaps it dumps instead, if it has like a positive news. To beginners' surprise, usually they think that that's the time that it would run up, but then it doesn't. And the same can be with the negative news. The same can be that as at first thought, you would assume that when that date comes, those ETH unlock, some of them take them out and they sell them as soon as they can, as quickly as possible, and price dumps. That's what you would kind of expect. But I think probably it's not going to be like that. It's like you say, this is priced in already, so some people might want to sell before. There is also a limit on how much can be unstaked per block. So the people who want to sell, they're probably really stressed because maybe they cannot get their ETH out the first, so they're worried that someone will sell before them, and when they can sell, like 1 day later, price is already dumped. So they might want to try to hedge this somehow. And I think all these mechanisms will make for some volatility, but I don't think it's that easy that day will come and then it will dump. I don't think so. So I agree with you, Ran. I think that this is perhaps an opportunity instead to get in on more ETH, because I'm also positive to ETH. I don't know if I can share the screen here again.
Now, also, when you're done, I want to share the screen. I've got the stats.
Can you guys see the screen here?
Yep.
Yeah. 5 million of those 15 million are staked on liquid staking protocols, which means that 1/3 of those ETH are actually liquid.
There's the magical 0.08, which I know we're going to blast in.
Exactly. So there has not been a huge dumping of ETH or anything like that. Instead, Ethereum versus Bitcoin, that's what we're seeing here, like which one runs up the most. And Ethereum is pressing up against Bitcoin in this roof here. That range top, and if that breaks out, it's not so far from there to the number one coin, which is at about 0.16. So I'm hoping that we get some volatility, maybe some dump with the trend up, so we get the chance to enter on more Ethereum, because I agree with you, Ran. I think that this can be a great opportunity for the next cycle, and I would love to load up on some more ETH.
Good. Ran, you want to show something as well?
When you say load up on some ETH, if you were transferring Bitcoin into ETH, wouldn't you transfer now? I mean, I know the ETH price is not down, but the Bitcoin price is also not
down. Price is pretty much up at this resistance, so I would hope to get a better entry versus Bitcoin. That something around this drama causes some dump, and then I'll be first in line there and snatch those ETH.
But it's funny, you both mentioned,
that's my plan.
Yeah, Ran, you mentioned something very interesting about the kind of the multiples as I look at. So, like, I've been buying Bitcoin a lot longer than I've been buying ETH, and my ETH is 7.5x based on my average price, whereas my Bitcoin is just a little over 2x. So I always think about like kind of 3 to 5 to 9 type ratios, depending on kind of the level of alt. The big Bitcoin doesn't move as fast. We know Ethereum will outperform, it'll 2x or 3x what Bitcoin does. But the further you go down the line, you look at things that are so drastically oversold, will they sell or will they move a lot faster? So let's switch gears and talk about the Sol train, the Sol FUD. 2 weeks ago, Solana was declared dead. Where do you guys stand on this in terms of in relation to ETH, or which other altcoin do you believe can outperform Solana versus outperform ETH as you go down the food chain?
I mean, I've always been a Solana fan. I don't want to change my tune now. You know, I think, James, you and I have taken a lot of flack for being Solana fans. I don't think anyone predicted the collapse of FTX and Alameda and, the new seller in the market. The fundamentals on Solana are unbelievable. They're always the highest in terms of transactions. They're always number 1, 2, or 3 in terms of number of active addresses on any given day or month transacting. So fundamentally, I'm still bullish and long Solana. To be honest, I bought a whole lot more at 10 and I bought a whole lot more at about 11.50. I posted that trade on Twitter. I was very, very public about it. And I'm going to stay with my conviction there. I'm staying with the conviction that I think it's going to be good. I think the next play, though, is layer 2s. And yes, we don't have, Arbitrum doesn't have a token yet. And, I think Starknet and all those. But I think there's a massive layer 2 narrative happening at the moment on Ethereum. And, the only real tokens that have started running, Optimism and Matic, I think that's another narrative that needs to play out this year. And so any entry that you can get into Ethereum layer 2 is probably a good place to be. And then lastly, one of the narratives that I'm looking at, you asked about, what's next, is Cosmos, but not the Cosmos token. but tokens inside the Cosmos ecosystem, because that for me is truly a cross-chain narrative. So things like, DYDX, all those cross-chain Cosmos ecosystem plays for me are places that I'd be looking at.
All the IBC stuff. What's your take?
Yeah.
CTO?
Yeah, this is very, very interesting. And I have to add one thing. I forgot to say, I have Ethereum I have an Ethereum exposure already since before. I have to say that for disclosure. I'm talking about adding more. So Solana then, it is so interesting. Am I still sharing the screen? Can you still see it?
It's showing now, yes.
So I missed this entry. I was on holiday and I didn't pay attention, but this was a solid, easy entry. Here is Solana to BTC. Look at this support line. I had this drawn from beginning. It broke down, then it climbed back up. It retested. And look at the volume spikes again here. Look on the right side here. How many Sol changed hands here? There was big buyers here buying Sol. And Ran, you were front running them and getting ahead of them. But that is a huge support area created here. Now it's run up. Now it kind of come into resistance. Downside of holiday, I missed this entry. That hurts a little bit. But if we get the retracement back here into this area, I'm going to load up on more Sol, because I think, like you, James, that this one can have a lot of potential for the coming cycle. We talked about it for a long time, and it hasn't really played out, right? But I mean, I come from telecom. Cost matters, capacity matters, scalability, speed, those kind of things, which Ethereum hasn't really had on layer 1. When things get busy, it gets very expensive, it gets slow, and so on. Solana has performed much better than that. It is newer, it has had a lot of issues with a network being stopped, and so on and so forth. But I've always said that I'm forgiving to those kind of things in the beginning of a technology. There are things that breaking. It's about if you can fix them and move forward. So I see the potential in Solana.
I'm going to challenge you, CTO, because Ran said we need to challenge each other. So you were on Paul Barron Network. He asked you what were your favorite tokens a couple of weeks ago. Solana wasn't on your list. And second of all, Ran, don't we need the color of the ribbon to flip to confirm taking a position to go?
It will do
before
that.
Before you answer, I wanted to jump in here.
That's why I'm trying to get to the point a little too quickly, perhaps. But that's why kind of I missed it. I didn't pay attention to this the other signals because I wasn't really looking at the markets. So I missed that round. But if this one is going to run back up another 10x, another 20x, and so on, it doesn't really matter the exact entry. So I can enter with more money as long as I have high confidence and get the same results.
But the asset has done 200% in a very short window of time, which is kind of
exactly. So I'm not buying today. I feel that now is like not an entry here. Where would I put the stop loss? There's nowhere to put the stop loss. But if you get the retracement on the dollar chart, back to I'm mostly looking at the BTC chart, but say to 15, 14, 13, something like that, I'm going to load up. And perhaps that happens, perhaps it doesn't. And then I have to buy the breakout instead. But I mean, it's like a little bit like a surfer. I'm thinking like the surfer. I don't need to surf all the waves in the ocean. But if I'm on the wave and surfing, I need to take action if it doesn't go as planned. But there will come another wave tomorrow. I can catch that one. And if I don't need to worry that I missed something, I can always go double on the next wave or, use leverage instead. If I'm confident that the support has held and trend has turned around.
I love your analogy. I love your analogy that, you don't have to catch every wave. And I think that that's a very good lesson in crypto, because this is one industry that's filled with opportunities. You get pumps every single day. And so if you miss today's pump, there's always going to be another pump, just as long as you have dry powder to actually ride the wave. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, one lesson that we can all take away from Solana is that people are quick to declare a network dead based on the price movement. The day that Solana went down to $8 was one of the days where it had the most active addresses and the most active wallets and the most transactions. So the fundamentals and the price were completely misaligned. On the one hand, you have a network with the highest number of active addresses and the highest number of transactions in the world, and then the price dies and everyone declares it dead. Now notice that now that the price is 3x'd, everyone's talking about Solana being back to life. And so for me, it's very important that when someone declares a network dead, or when Twitter declares a network dead, ignore the noise and actually go and look at the fundamentals on chain. And if you've done that, and James, I don't know if you remember, I was mainly on holiday, but when that happened, I actually texted you the morning that it happened. I said, "Are you watching this? This is going to be the best buying opportunity we've ever seen."
Totally. You and I had good times that time. So sorry to disturb your vacation as well, but it's always good. And one thing I want to say is the three of us, the three amigos, we text all the time. And when Ran picks up something that is breaking news that impacts the industry, he's the first one to hear about it. True or not, Ran? You are connected to the grapevine, or whatever they call it.
We have a very big research team at Banter. I mean, altogether we're 65 people, and a lot of them are in research. And we plugged into lots of networks. So we hope that we can break news quite quickly, but we don't always get it right. We don't always get it right, but we try. We do try a bit.
So we kicked the Sol Train horse to death. Let's talk about, you mentioned kind of taking a step back to the ETH stuff and layer twos. When I look at Matic, all right, it's at $1. Its all-time high is $2.97. So hitting an all-time high, possible, but that's only a 3x from here. We don't want a 3x. Is a layer 2 like Matic interesting anymore, or would you go deeper to the optimisms or the arbitrums like you mentioned when they get their token?
So I think Matic is a bad example because Matic has realized a lot of its value and it's had a very big run up. And to me, the Matic trade is very overtraded. I love Matic. I hold Matic. The Matic trade for me is very overtraded. Optimism has a tokenomics problem. You will drown if you buy Optimism. You will drown in token releases, which is a problem for me. Arbitrum doesn't have a token yet. Starknet doesn't have a token yet. There are other Boba and all those other networks which haven't really got much traction. So it's a case of, I think you got to keep your eyes on the narrative and look for opportunities to enter. But I definitely think that 2023 is the year of Ethereum layer 2s. Ethereum layer 2s have higher transactions than Ethereum. In fact, even if you remove Matic and you say, let's take just Arbitrum and Optimism, they have higher transactions than Ethereum. So Matic has sometimes higher transactions than Ethereum on its own. And then Optimism and Arbitrum combined have higher transactions than Ethereum and growing very fast. And so what you're getting is the settlement layer in Ethereum with multiple side chains which are made for specific executions. Like if you look at Arbitrum is ideal for trading executions, and that's why you got like the GMX and all of those trading softwares built on Arbitrum. One caveat that I must bring in here. There is an Ethereum upgrade later this year, which I don't remember the number. I think it's like 4844 or something like that. But that Ethereum upgrade makes for layer 2 gas fees on Ethereum to be much lower. Okay, now why is that important? Because if the layer 2s don't have to pay the Ethereum gas fees or pay much lower gas fees on Ethereum, it means that they can start transacting US dollars, stable coins, at costs close to zero. So very similar to Solana or Tron or when you're trading those things, it's at costs which are close to zero. And that changes the game because then you've got payments on Ethereum. And if you've got payments on Ethereum, right now you don't really have mass payments on Ethereum. You have large scale payments on Ethereum for people who are willing to pay gas fees. You don't have micro payments, but very soon you will have, because of the new upgrade, you will have micro payments on Ethereum. And that's a game changer. That's a whole new vertical called payments coming to live on Ethereum. And that's important.
And that takes us to another topic, which is the top use
Can I
cases.
just add one thing on Matic? Can I
Yeah.
say my take on Matic? Because I think it's very interesting, actually. If we have one second, I share the screen again.
Look at
I
it,
think the
Justin.
Matic is very
Yeah.
simple. Here is Matic to Bitcoin. The big run up was here in 2021. You can see it here. Then it has
Yes.
bounced up twice against its resistance. It's just below that. It's usually not where you want to buy something below resistance. You buy it at support or you buy it at the breakout. And right now it's just below the resistance. But if it breaks up, it could run further, because I feel that Matic has done something pretty smart. They're presenting themselves as part of the Ethereum network, but actually they're not really today. They're running their own network on the side. And then they're saying, yeah, in the future we're going to, become one happy family with Ethereum. And that has worked extremely well with all the Web2 companies. They said, yeah, sure, okay, we're going to use Matic, Polygon Matic. And then that might be pushed into the future, and they might run Matic much further than anyone thinks. That's my guess. And I think it's a conscious decision.
If I had one word to describe the people at Matic, and in a very fun way, because the word could be misconstrued, if I were to use one word to describe them, they are a bunch of magicians. They are magicians. They can make magic happen. They really can. In terms of biz dev deals, in terms of, they are a bunch of unbelievable magicians. And so I think, and I said in the nicest possible way, not the elusive way.
But they're buying business through their partnership program. Remember that.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah, they are, but that's great. Hey, if that's your business development strategy, that's great. But again, I say, for me, it's an overtraded trade. So I love Matic. I got in early, and I intend to stay in. But if I wasn't in, I think they're better trades from a risk return, specifically from a return point of view. There's better trades out there.
Okay, let's switch gears.
I think also it's very important now. If we are actually turning around, it's like you said before, Rand, we're going to be swamped with opportunities. We're going to run out of money because there's perfect opportunities coming right and left all the time. If this really is turning around here, which my bet is that it is. So then we don't take the quite good trades. We want the
me and you will run out of money.
Yeah,
me and you of money, but James is not going to run out of money. James has just got there's no way James is going to money.
One of the things that I think for people to position themselves, and I always look at, as far as I can into the future, where do we need to be to position ourselves? And for that, we need to understand the best use case for a blockchain that has the biggest TAM, total addressable market. What do you guys see as the best use case? I've got a couple of ideas here, like banking. You mentioned payments, so important. If you can find a way to run global payments on layer 2s on Ethereum, that would be a game changer for Ethereum. No ifs, ands, or buts. You've got cybersecurity, you've got AI, you've got government, CBDCs, all that type of stuff. Where do you guys see the biggest play? In my opinion, I think it's the moving of things like stock exchanges to blockchains, number one, payments, number two, etc., maybe medical, number three. Where do you guys see the big play? And which chain would associate with that big play?
I think that it's a very unfair question, and I'll tell you why. I think that a lot of businesses are going to be inefficient, and they're going to migrate from Web 2 to Web 3. And I think the problem is that you've got a combination of things that are going to happen. I'll give you one example. AI. The real reason why AI is so exciting on blockchain is because AI is all about, there's two reasons. The one is that AI is all about data, and we are the data, and we're not getting rewarded for being the data. Yep. And because remember, every time you do something, you're leaving a data track, and that data track is what makes the AI so clever, and that's how Google and Microsoft are going to make money out of us. But I want to be paid for that. And the only way that I can be paid for being the product is if I'm rewarded by crypto or with crypto every time I deposit data into this world data depository and it is used. The second reason where AI is where crypto becomes super important for AI is that, remember, AI is effectively virtual assistants. I'm going to use that as lightly, negotiating with other virtual assistants. So to think of like what AI is, you set your bot to book a holiday for you. You say, hey bot, I want to go on a vacation to Sweden to visit my friend CTO Larson. And the bot does everything for you. Yeah. Now, when the bot actually does this, the bot needs to get paid. And it's not going to be paid with a credit card because that's not immediate finality, right? And so eventually what's going to happen is every time two AI things interact, there's going to be a transfer of value. So like, I always use this example, but I'm going to use it again. If my car is driving behind your car and both cars are driverless cars, okay? So I'm driving behind you and my car's a driverless car and your car's a driverless car.
Sheldon.
And I want to overtake you.
Exactly.
I want to overtake you, right? How do I overtake you? The two cars have to negotiate. So AI negotiates and says, hey, James, will you move over? No. What if I pay you $1? Will you move over? No. Okay, what if I pay you $5? Will you move over? Yes, I'll move over. You move over. There's going to be a transfer of value between the one car and the other car. And so you're mixing two narratives there. One is payments and one is AI.
Yeah.
So that's why I say that what you're doing here is, I think it's mixing all the use cases together is where the magic happens, number one.
Okay.
And two, I think the other place where the biggest use case of blockchain is the things that we don't know yet. Like, what's the next NFT, which didn't exist in the old world, which we created in the new world, and is the fastest growing technology of all time before ChatGPT came in. And so I think all the narratives holding hands, plus all the narratives we don't know, is where the magic happens.
I agree with that. CTO, any perspective? You want to pick?
I think, yeah, I mean, my bet would be payments. Payments is a big thing. And to this date, I still have not met a single person who can look me in the eye and say that they don't believe that global money on the internet has a point. Even the biggest crypto hater, the biggest Bitcoin hater, they cannot say that with a straight face, right? Second, I think exchanges, trading, we've seen that things like Uniswap, one guy can program something that can really go and compete with traditional exchanges that had hundreds or thousands of employees, and it can be done by a piece of software instead. So those are two things. But then I think you said it, James, on the previous show that it's adoption. The next big thing is adoption. And what will be adoption? We don't know. We don't need to figure it out. We can just look at the numbers. We can see where is adoption happen, and we track that. We follow that. We don't need to predict it. We can just react when we see it happening. Then AI is, this will have a bigger impact on white-collar work than 99.9% of people realize. I think it's only people in crypto who have kind of seen this kind of revolutions happening in weeks that can kind of even fathom what's going to happen here. There is so much work, white-collar work, that AI is going to do better. And it's going to be not in 10 years. It's going to be like, in March, maybe. Exactly. And it's happening now. And I think we were all blown away, actually, by ChatGPT and what it can do. And it is, it's going to profoundly change our society in the same way as industrial revolution and production moving out of the Europe and US and all those things. Suddenly, there will be fewer people who can add more value because they will use this as leverage. And there will be more people who cannot add any value in the current profession because AI is going to do it better. And how this will transform into opportunities, new companies, new token opportunities, whatever it will lead to, we're like at the first stumbling step. But it's definitely something we cannot sleep on.
In fact, the All In podcast guys described it as some movie with Tom Cruise or whatever, where there's one person who's like the maestro, the orchestrator with the screen. That is kind of, that does a million different things at once. That's kind of the future. I'll say quick fire question on this. This is really good input. And I love, Ran, the way you said everything's blending together. One element that I think CZ said on your show back in December or maybe November was how important the wallet is for onboarding. But having a wallet that can do it all, that is absolutely critical. Your AI is in there, your wallet's in there. You can bleep and buy a property in El Salvador with your Bitcoin on your wallet. Everything is kind of frictionless. That is, I think, very important. But do you guys have a favorite AI play like Render or Fetch or any of those companies?
I was about to ask that, actually, because I'm very bullish on the sector. I really am. But I think the crypto companies in the sector are we did a show on it last week. I'm going to shill my channel, go back to my channel. We did an AI show last week. And I researched all the tokens. Obviously, I've been researching for a while, but I researched all the tokens before the show. And I realized that all the tokens are benefiting from the AI hype. But if I were to look at them as standalone tokens without a narrative, then I don't know if I'd be buying any of them right now. So it's like, I think the tide on AI rose very quickly.
Yep.
And it lifted up all ships, including the crypto ship. Now, if that tide goes out, I think the crypto ships are going to fall back to the bottom of the ocean where they were before. No disrespect to the tokens. Like, we spoke about Viot, we spoke about Fetch, we spoke about Singularity Net, we spoke about Singularity DAO. We think they're all very good, but I think you just got to be careful because I don't know how many of them are real world ready. It's not like Bitcoin, which is real world ready. If you look at these tokens, they're quite early stage. So
exactly, they don't know what they want to be when they grow up. That's the problem, as we used to say. Startup software companies, they're going in 20 different directions, and without focusing on just one thing. CTO, what do you reckon?
You've got Viot, which is
kind of a similar token. I don't own any of the AI tokens. I didn't really love any of it. What I've seen so far could be that I just haven't found it or just haven't understood it. So I'm not, disrespecting any token here. But I am almost sure that if we have a major run, there's going to come new projects here that will perhaps have more compelling narratives. And that's definitely a sector that I will be studying hard, because there we can find the next, 1000x coins, no doubt.
Yeah, Rand, do you think the hype around AI is kind of like the 2021 Web3 narrative and all the pumping by A16Z, etc., or is it different?
No. This AI thing is very real and scary. I just want to... I'm really scared about AI. Why? We've seen chatbot, and that's the first application which we've seen, which most people have seen. And with that first application of AI, I can see millions, if not hundreds of millions of people losing their jobs. So just with the current applications of chatbot and related, you can get a chatbot to book your flight, to negotiate fee discounts for you with your bank, and that's just one application, let alone the fact that we're going to see hundreds of these coming out. And so I think a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, and there's going to be a transition quicker. People are going to lose jobs quicker than new roles are created because of the speed at which technology is progressing. So I think that the scary thing to me, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, to the extent that I'm actually worried that I'm going to lose my job. And I reckon that my job, I've got a 2 to 3 year time horizon on my job. And I'll tell you why I've seen it. I've seen deep fake AIs of Tom Cruise, where, to be honest, I had to triple take to see that it was actually Tom Cruise and not a deep fake AI. Now, at the speed at which technology progresses, one thing you got to remember about AI is that the more you train it, the more it knows you. And it keeps backtesting what it thinks you will do to what you've done. And that way it becomes smarter and smarter and smarter. Which means that one day, and I suspect it's 2 to 3 years away, there will be a program which will put run on the screen, and you'll see me exactly like I look today. Only the program will be an unemotional run, which will be more me than me when I have mood swings and emotions and FOMO and stuff like that. And so I think that most current jobs that I know are going to be lost, and also my own job is going to be lost in 2 to 3 years. I think I've got 2 to 3 years left on YouTube before an AI completely does it. You can tell the AI, please make me a movie with the following 5 characters, make it a love story, and make it a happy love story or a sad love story, and make sure you incorporate the following elements, and you can give it a whole long script. It'll make you a movie in a couple of minutes. Guys, we've got 3 years here. Enjoy DCA, enjoy my show, James's show, CTO show, because we're only around for 3 more years before the AI takes over.
Time to make.
I did an experiment yesterday. Actually, I was thinking, okay, now I will go through 20 tweets from the top, and I think how many of these could be tweeted by a chatbot if instructing it something like tweet some update that just happened, in the crypto market. And it was all of them. There was no original insight. There was no unique event. It was just rephrasing something that already exists, like writing it in a thread, some insight in a thread, or updating something that someone has done, or telling something motivational, inspirational, stuff like that. It was nothing there really that couldn't have been done faster, cheaper, better, lower cost by AI. So I for sure, I think there will be a lot of AI generated content on internet, and what might remain is trust, things like that, and some things that AI can't do. Like AI needs a feedback loop. That's how it works, right? It needs to know, did I do it right or did I do it wrong? That's how it works. So only things that have very long feedback loops are AI can't really do. Like very big, say, existential questions, or very big questions like, say, will Bitcoin make it?
Yeah.
AI won't know because there's no feedback loop.
Yeah.
Or like, will Ethereum or Solana dominate in the end? AI doesn't know because there's no feedback loop. There is nothing really to learn from in that question. So it's, while everything with short feedback loops, that's why I've said for many years that I think a poor strategy to make money in the markets is try to get the best in the world at trading the 1 minute candles with day trading, because it's when you finally learned it, AI is going to do it even better because the feedback loop is so short that it can learn to do it better than any human. It can do it really fast.
Awesome. So I did promise to come back. Ran hinted at something regarding macro, and everybody, I always say, keep your head out the window, watch macro if you're in the markets. So there's lots of weird stuff going on with monetary policy. Everybody knows the Fed is slowing. It's very clear. The question is, when will they stop? This was on CNBC. They believe Fed slowing near the end. ECB inflation is tanking. Money printing, etc., is kind of a problem because the Fed can't reduce the balance sheet. The US and EU are in recessionary territory. China is proceeding to de-dollarize the US dollar. Bank of Japan is doing crazy monetary stuff and yield curve control. What is your take on macro? Either one of you go first. Where are we, and does it bode well for being in the markets right now?
I mean, I can show what the market thinks. There's this amazing tool. If someone hasn't found it yet, this is an incredible tool. I know both of you know it, but maybe there's someone in the audience who doesn't know. Here you can see what the market thinks. So here is like the next meeting in February. And then you can see here, 450 to 475 is what most people think. Then you press the tabs here. March, they think 475 to 500. So that was, if we go back, we can see that market thinks it's going to go up a little bit, 475 to 500. Next one, in May, 475 to 500. 475 to 500. Next one, 475 to 500.
I think you need to explain, CTO, what this means, because what they're saying is 25 basis points, stop. The highest probability, correct?
That is correct. So the market thinks here that they will today it's 425 to 450 current rate, and they think then the market thinks that next one it increases it one step, so 450 to 475. And then when we go to March, they think one more step, 475 to 500. But then as we click the further tabs, most people think it's the same. 475 to 500, 475 to 500, 475 to 500, September 475 to 500, November 475 to 500, and then in December...
We get that.
It's kind of the same.
What do you think? And the reason I'm going fast is we're trying to get this wrapped up within an hour, and then we'll do some questions. But we're coming up. Time flies and you're having fun. Ran, macro, your view.
I think that if you look at this last 6 months inflation, if you add up the inflation for the last 6 months, it's 0.9%. You annualize that, inflation is currently running at under 2%. I think if the Fed can hold this course for another 3 months, then people won't overspend and we'll have the inflation problem past us. So, and I think China has opened up loosened its COVID policies, which has good and bad. On the one hand, things are going to start getting delivered again, which means it's going to reduce price pressure. On the other hand, Chinese are going to start consuming again, and China consumption can increase costs. Net, I think the worst is behind us when it comes to macro. But I do think that the Fed will keep the levels down because they don't want to destroy all the hard work that they've done by showing that they're going to be loosening soon. So I'm expecting 25 basis points now. I'm expecting 25 basis points at the next meeting. And I think I'm expecting one more 25 basis points, which is the market, by the way, is not expecting. And then we're good to go. And then we're going to hit a recession. And then when the recession comes, the Fed's going to start loosening because they're going to say, hold on a second. We've overdone it. We over-tightened too much too quickly. We caused the recession. We can't afford a recession. Let's start lowering interest rates. And they'll start lowering them very slowly in 25 bips intervals until we're out of recession.
Or until something breaks.
Exactly. And very important here is that you got to front run this. You cannot have a strategy to wait until they have, already reduced and eased and everything. Then it's too late. Then the market has already run up. The market is faster. So you got to front run it. And that's why I'm excited now.
Yeah, the market is dead right, CTO. The market is forward looking. And the bottom was 3,500. Many people believe for the S&P 500. Final fun question of the day for you guys. If you just take the sentiment of Twitter, it's 70 to 80% extremely negative, extremely bearish. And the question is, how do you find the signal in the noise, or how do you block out the noise? Anything you could share with the audience? What data, trends? How do you find your own narrative, your own vision of the future?
I'm super surprised about how salty the people on Twitter are today. But then I'm not surprised. I'll tell you why. I think a lot of them just are mad that they missed the run. So imagine being in crypto right through all of these declines, having been hit, and then actually missing this run. And so a lot of people, generally when we get a run, everyone's positive and happy, right? And if you look on Twitter today, it's still a lot of salt. And I think one of the reasons they're so angry. They're angry that they missed the rally. They're angry that they missed the rally. People hate this rally. It's the most hated rally that there is. Generally, I try and stay away from the sentiment on Twitter, or I try and use it as a counter indicator, because the people in Twitter are the bees, the bzzz. You got to be ahead of the bees. So I think, no one believes we've seen the bottom because they all have PTSD after the year that we had. I believe we've seen the bottom. I'm going to say it. I know you're not supposed to pick bottoms. I've called it. We've seen the bottom. We're starting to move up from here. Is it going to go up in a straight line? Absolutely not. So for me, look at Twitter, kind of do the opposite of Twitter. Remember what just remember what the average Twitter user is about. It's hiding behind an avatar, and you're usually not dealing with the smartest people in the world. Yes, there are very good, smart people on Twitter, but the masses on Twitter, sorry, but it is what it is.
I agree 100%. I posted a video today because I've had a framework for some time with different points, like how to smell the bottom. And in October, it was like -6. And then in mid-December, it was ±0. Now it's like +5. And and one of the points is really the counter indication of retail traders, because it's kind of sad, but it is like that. Everyone knows that you're supposed to buy low and sell high, yet 90% go and do the opposite. They're going to buy when it's the most euphoric. It's, laser eyes, 100K, and everyone is mortgaging their house and they're buying as much as they can. That's the euphoria top. That's when most people buy their biggest position. And then they hold all the way down, and then comes depression. It's going to zero. It's over. It's different this time. They will not be turning around. Macro this and Fed and, everything is going to zero. It was all a scam. And it's better sell the little I have left before that's gone too. And then they sell. And that is the bottom. Yeah. That person has sold. Then the whales buy there instead. And, price starts running up. And then everyone is angry. And it is sad, but that is a counter indicator. The majority of the people, sadly, will do the opposite of what is the case. And I said exactly the same thing on the video today as you said, Ran. People are so angry, so salty, that means they missed it.
And being a
majority of
student of
people.
history as well, it's very important to look at history because there are age-old lessons that go back over 100 years in the markets. All that stuff is playing out today. Maximum fear, etc. Okay, so this has been excellent. Any quick one sentence each? How do you find your own signal? Do you agree?
Yeah, so for me, it's very clear. It's price. Price has to be respected. So when you say, oh, but it's like the price has turned now and it's like this and like that, then people always have explanation. Yeah, but it's because this and because that. And for that reason, it's not valid. Well, it is. Price has to be respected. If price is going up, that means that there is more buy volume than sell volume. That's it. And that means someone is buying and they're buying a lot. And if price is going down, that means that large players are selling. That you need to take in that information, and that's for me. So I filter out the noise by looking at the price and considering everything that's said on social media as largely as a counter indicator.
Good. Ran, how do you find your signal? Besides the 55-person research team.
I maybe want to bypass the question, and I have two questions for you guys before we go.
Okay.
First question, I'm looking at the FTT token. The FTT token is trading at $2.60, which gives it a fully diluted market capitalization of $1 billion. Is there any reason in the world not to short the shit out of this thing?
Well, you can't find it to short, first of all, can you? It's extremely difficult.
And network and Gate.io both allow you to short.
And second thing as well, maybe people believe the 3AC team is going to buy the software from FTX and build their own exchange. Who knows?
That could be.
Do you want to talk about that news today that broke?
Well, that's the news of GTX, which is an exchange, which is what Suzu and Carl Davies, of all people, are raising money for. Believe it or not, they're raising $25 million for an exchange called a new crypto exchange called GTX. There's two separate pitch decks which we've seen. Now get this: Carl Davies, Suzu, Mark Lamb from CoinFlex. You remember CoinFlex is the Roger Ver company, which is going up against Roger Ver. Also ran out of money. Get this: the advisor to GTX
was just
Barry Silver.
Yeah. Oh, what? So they're taking all the worst actors in the place and building a circus or something? I don't know. I don't want to get political, but this is very bizarre. The mix of characters. And will it be a rebirth? And a question I have for you guys both: do you consider these guys bad actors or just novices who got screwed by being over leveraged or betting on the wrong horses, or things just went against them too far, too fast?
So you know what? I'm going to be honest here. And I know this is not going to be popular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. If that pitch deck lands up on my desk at a reasonable valuation, I'm in. And I know it's not popular opinion, but I'll tell you why I'm in. I believe that Suzu and Carl Davies were absolute geniuses to have got to where they've got to. I believe that they were inexperienced and they over leveraged themselves, but we can't take away from the fact that they were behind the best projects and that their strategies were super solid. In the bull market, they were heroes. They were over leveraged. They managed to also take uncollateralized debt from a lot of people because a lot of people trusted the brand names of Suzu and Carl Davies. I think that when you've been hit as hard as they've been hit, they have a point to prove to the world. So you've got a smart people who've taken a knock and been humbled and now have a point to prove to the world after potentially learning a lesson. Now, I don't like what they did, and I really, really, really acknowledge the implications of their over leverage to the rest of the industry. And I think that that's really terrible.
Do you think it was the GBTC trade that took them down?
GBTC, leveraged on Luna, they were over leveraged on 1,000,001 things. But I just want to say the following. I think to date, as far as I know, there have been no charges proven against them, or maybe even no allegations of fraud and dishonesty against them. Yes, they were over leveraged, but as far as I know, and I'm happy to change my opinion if something comes out, but I haven't seen charges of fraud brought against them and stuff like that. As long as the only reason why they went down is that they were over leveraged and they did not commit anything fraudulent or dishonest, and again, I don't have the information, then I may actually consider investing in this exchange, because on the other side of it, if there is no fraud and if there is no dishonesty, you may have two smart people here who have learned a very tough lesson in life on a mission to prove a point. And when that happens, I think amazing things can happen. I'm not in the habit of writing off entrepreneurs because they failed. I will definitely not back an entrepreneur if I think that they've been dishonest, or I think that they've lied, or I think that they've been fraudulent. But in the event, in the absence of that, I think it could work.
You sound like the, is it O'Reilly guy, O'Leary?
Kevin O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary. He says something very similar, that he likes people who have failed.
Sam Bankman-Fried was a fraudster, and he said he'd back Sam Bankman-Fried again on my show. Again, as far as I know, these guys haven't done any fraud. I might be wrong. Taking high leverage.
SBF definitely conducted fraud.
Yes.
Or he's a complete combine, one or the other.
As far as I know, and again, I say this with the limited information that I have, these guys, as far as I know, didn't commit any fraud. They just traded badly, and the market went against them on multiple trades at the same time, and they find themselves over-leveraged. Being over-leveraged, to me, is not a crime, and it's certainly something that you'd learn a very valuable lesson from. I know that I've traded over-leveraged on trading platforms. I learned a tough lesson, and I've become way more humble in the leverage that I take, and I've become a way better trader as a result.
All right, we got a couple of quick questions for the audience, and then we'll wrap this up. I know it's late for you guys over the other side of the pond, way over. So first question is from Justice for All, obviously a Metallica fan. Gemini Earn, is it all gone? ? Have you been tracking that?
I mean,
yeah, I have.
I don't know anything more than the public, but for sure it's not all gone. That I don't think so.
But even with the DCG complete loss of Genesis, I think there's nothing left. Genesis is a $3 billion hole. I'm hoping.
I think that will continue to develop over a longer period of time, especially if the market turns around.
Yeah, good. Fingers crossed. Ran, you tracking that one?
I see people in the chat are saying that Three Arrows Capital commingled client funds. They didn't have client funds. They didn't commingle client funds. That was FTX. They were a fund, and they just took a lot of leverage. So just a correction there. In terms of Gemini Genesis, I don't think it's all gone. I think that DCG will be forced to honor its promissory notes, one which expires in May 2023, and one which I think expires in 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And I think DCG will be on the hook for the assets. And DCG have very valuable assets. I think there is a chance that it will come close to wiping out DCG, but I do think that you will get quite a lot of money out of your Earn account back, to be honest. I think, don't worry. I mean, it could take time, but I think the situation is going to resolve itself.
Oh, fingers crossed. Question from Nikki Begato. What do you think of Gareth Soloway's prediction that there will be a small short-term run and then followed by a lower low to $10,000 Bitcoin? I know Gareth is on your show a lot, Ran. CTO, do you track him? Do you believe we're going to 10K for Bitcoin?
I mean, the fact is that no one knows, right? But we can react to what happens. For now, my bet is that bottom is in and we're moving up from here. If we make new lows, okay, I change my mind. But right now, I don't think so. I think that's what everyone thought, right? Yeah. And then market doesn't give us that.
Ran, what's your take? And he was a good friend of your channel.
He's a very smart guy. He called the market right. I'm going to disagree with him respectfully on this one. I think that I think we've seen the bottom, guys, and I think we need to start moving. I might be wrong, but
yep.
A lot of there are a lot of people that called Bitcoin up to $100,000 last year, and Bitcoin only got to $70,000, and that's on the way up. On the way down, there'll be a lot of people calling for 10, and it'll turn at 15, which we've already seen. So it's a case of, in an up market, people are always calling the market way more up, and in a down market, people are always calling the market way more down. And
I'm going to double tap into that. Do you believe Bitcoin, like we saw the 17,500 low after 3AC, all that stuff blow up. Then we had FTX blow up, which took us from 21 down to 15.5. That was the mother of all black swans, at least in the history of crypto, in my opinion. Some people disagree with that. Do you believe if there wasn't for all of the contagion happening in summer 2022, followed up by the November FTX blow up, if none of that happened, what do you think the low would have been for Bitcoin? This is the thing. I think it's not, people kind of predict numbers, but they are
previous low before FTX, which I think was, I'm just calling it back here. It was 17,800. That's 17,500. That would have been the low for me.
Yeah.
There are, for the people calling for the $10,000 Bitcoin, there are only two things left that could give us a $10,000 Bitcoin. Binance. One is the collapse of Binance or USD. Neither of which I think is going to happen, by the way. But I mean, again, I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller. And I don't have access to Binance's books. And the second thing is something to do with Tether and the collapse of Tether or the depegging of Tether or whatever else. To me, that's the only two risks in this ecosystem big enough to get Bitcoin down to 10,000. So do I believe Gareth Soloway? Well, because I believe the likelihood of both of those things is very low, then I don't believe it. Let me give you another something which could, the arrest of CZ. Now, again, I don't think that's going to happen because I do think that he's a very straight down the line good guy. But just I'm giving you, like, if the US charged CZ and I don't know some way managed to do something, who knows what could happen. So those for me are the threats in the industry. You got to play against the threats.
Yeah, if I can add one thing here, I think the whole point is that it's impossible to predict the future. None of us here could predict FTX or basically any of these huge things that happened, and no one else either. I mean, someone might have been lucky then, but they're going to get everything else wrong. It's very difficult to predict, to do predictions, especially about the future. And the same thing is about the future from here onwards. We don't know what will happen with with Binance. We don't know what happened with USDT. I think they're fine, but maybe they're not. We don't know. Grayscale, perhaps they need to unwind. Perhaps there's some huge issue. Maybe they need to sell all the Bitcoin and reconstruct the fund. Who knows what will happen? But if it does, we react to it. Then we take action. Then we change our mind. We take new action. And instead of, thinking that we can predict what's going to happen in 2024, we have no idea. No one could predict COVID. No one could predict any of these issues that happen. But if we're fast to take in the new information, there's plenty of time to react to it and take action, change our mind, and move up. But based on what we see right now, I see no reason to think that any of those things will happen. I don't see any indication in, huge sellers of BNB or something. We don't see anything in the charts like we saw maybe on the, say, Cell token or FTT token or Luna token. There we could see signs that people were selling. We don't see that in the BNB. I don't know anything about USDT that would suspect that. I haven't heard anyone saying that Grayscale need to sell all their Bitcoin. On the contrary, the Grayscale discount has turned around, which is a huge point. Before, no one was willing to buy Bitcoin through GBTC at 50% discount. Now they are. Now they're buying and the discount is reducing. So we don't see any signs of any of those things. And then I think I'm pretty confident. But if that changes tomorrow, okay, we take a new situation, we react, we change our mind, and we come back here and say that, I come back and say I changed my mind. But now I don't think so.
Good stuff. Final question. And then it's a wrap, everybody. Thank you all for being here in the audience. We're nearly at 1,000 likes, nearly 3,000 people watching live. Don't forget to subscribe to these beautiful two channels here. Last question from me, from MT is USD, not the stable coins, but actual dollars in a Coinbase account, FDIC insured, since they are a regulated company? I can take that unless you guys know, but Coinbase is not an FDIC insured bank, and cryptocurrency is also not insured. So for some reason, even though they hold US dollar deposits on behalf of clients, they are not FDIC insured as far as I know. Do you guys know?
I don't know. No idea.
I think you were looking at taking a flutter on Coinbase recently, buying the stock.
Yeah. I did actually take a position in Coinbase. I don't know if the FDIC insured. I do like the token. I mean, the share. I picked it up under $40. It's trading at, I think, very close to $50 today. I think obviously the markets are closed today, so nothing's happening. Yeah. I love Coinbase. I think that at a market cap of, I don't want to be wrong, so let me quickly get the market cap here. The market cap is $11 billion. You know, when you're talking about a company that's probably going to be one of the biggest 2 or 3 exchanges in the world, and certainly going to be regulated and going to have access to the US market. Now that FTX has gone in the US and Binance is a smaller player in the US market is the one that counts. And I think what's going to eat the lion's share of the pie there is going to be Coinbase. And I think the valuation of $11 billion is just too low. So for me, carry on buying Coinbase, carry on dollar cost averaging into Coinbase.
And I think there'll be an upside surprise in earnings. People are expecting earnings to be bad next quarter, I think, because of the fallout from FTX. Everybody, including people like myself, are forced to use it. So that's where we are. So any final thoughts, everybody, for the team? Again, don't forget these 2 channels below.
I mean, I'm the most happy and excited that I've been since 2021. Actually, I finally we're back.
Good.
Listen, if that doesn't make you bullish to the viewers, if the fact that Larson is bullish doesn't make you bullish, then I give up. I mean, you're bullish. There's a guy in our office called Kyle. He's bullish, and I haven't seen Kyle bullish ever.
He's a permanent.
Yeah. So I mean, he's bullish. You're bullish. Come on. I think it's time. Look, we may get another leg down. We may get a little correction, but net, I think we're good.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, everybody, and thank you to everybody in the audience. Great show. This is DCA. It's back. Rotates every week. Next week, Ran on your channel or CTO?
Yeah. We'll confirm. It'll be on one of the channels. We'll confirm it on Twitter.
Good. Mondays, DCA day. Thank you both. Have a good evening. Go get some dinner, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks, everybody.
Much love.
Thank you, everyone.
Love.